Watson's banning of the burqa, what will that do with Section 116 of the Constitution? Could that be unconstitutional?
I'm sorry, I'm not with you at all.
Would banning the burqa be in breach of Section 116 of the Constitution with religious freedom?
I think it could be. It's going to be a matter for the High Court, but I think that wearing an external representation of your religious faith is something that we respect in Australia, and so long as it doesn't lead to damage or interfere in other people's rights or create problems of security, then of course we should allow it. But it's going to be a matter for the court ultimately to determine what religious freedom means in Australia.
What did you think of Pauline Hanson wearing a burqa into the Senate last week?
Well, it was obviously a stunt. I think it was one that demeaned the Muslim people, and it demeaned those women who choose to wear a burqa. I think it was a disgraceful performance, but she's made her point.
But what about people who feel that Sharia law could be coming to Australia? Is that any kind of threat at all in Australia?
Is it a
Sharia law
Yes.
coming to Australia? Would that could that happen if there's religious protection under the Constitution?
Well, there are various ways in which religious law affects the private lives of people. For example, canon law, Christian canon law, affects the lives of many Australians. The views of the Vatican affect the lives of Catholics in this country, and similarly in other religions. It's not at all unusual to have our private lives regulated, at least, by religious canons and diktat. That does not constitute a rule of law in Australia, of course. The rule of law is the rule determined by Parliament and enforced by the courts.
Should Sharia divorce courts be allowed in Australia?
I think that becomes, if it's a matter of private law within the Muslim community, and they want to manage their affairs in that way, and they believe in those rules, that's reasonably acceptable. But at the same time, if they want to go to the civil law courts and to have the system determined according to Australian law, then they would be obviously entitled to do that as well.
You have been criticised by being too close to the Labor Party. By coming to a book launch today, does this make it difficult for your legacy?
I'm not close to the Labor Party at all. I've never been a member of any party ever in my entire life, and I'm in my 70s. And I support books and launch books across the entire political spectrum. So I'm afraid the premise that I'm close to the Labor Party is not true at all. And in fact, I'm very critical of the Labor Party, particularly with regard to its policies on refugees.
Now, what about 18C? There was the issue with Bill Leak, and there was the issue with the Queensland University of Technology students.
We're going to have to wrap this up.
All right, last question. Do you regret how long, with those developments with the QUT students, do you regret it took so long to resolve that issue?
Of course, I think we all regret that an issue of that kind took so long. But I have to say that the Human Rights Commission acted impeccably in managing this matter, and it took a long time because the parties were reluctant ultimately to reach an agreement, and went ultimately, as they're quite entitled to do, to go to the federal court, where the matter was finally resolved by the court, as indeed it should be if you can't resolve it between the parties.
Professor, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.